Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron.
Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they gotta wait.
Yeah, that's my take on what's yours.
Protonic Reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Having Beck at that time like your band, right? And having Sebadoh like your band.
Yeah.
You know, Dan and I, what we really wanted, like, this is not just a Sub Pop because we wanted to be on Touch and Go. And we played a show. It was a South by Southwest with Steel Pole Bathtub and Insane. It was a crazy show.
That's great.
Found the poster for it. I can't believe the lineup. And we played, and the guy Corey from Touch and Go was there, and like got introduced and everything. And I was like, "Ask us, like, just now's your chance, Corey." And he didn't do it. I never asked him either. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never told him we wanted to switch labels.
You were kind of trying to will it into
existence. He was really, yeah, well, I'm really, like I said, I used to expect people to know what I was capable of just looking at me, right?
Yeah.
Without having to explain it to him. And I don't know if that's ego or what, but I wanted him to say, "Hey, Mike, if you guys ever think of switching labels on the Touch and Go," I would say, "Oh, we'll think about it." And then he'd be like, "Yeah." And it turns out, like, I later heard from June of '44, they said that Corey had said that was one band he wished that
he'd gotten.
I don't know if that's true or they were saying that just to make me feel good, but he had said, "Yeah, godheadSilo was the." And, another was Matador. We wanted to be on Matador. And we made, like, the story I heard was that Gerard Cosley lasted like one song and then threw up from the, because we're like, "Oh, the label guys here, we got to be like extra loud." Right?
Yeah, exactly. You got to turn it up.
And we told him he had to leave. He had to leave because it made him puke. And I was like, is that good or bad? Like, in the end, it's a good story, but it's like,
it's a great story,
probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then at that time too, okay, so sorry, this is forever, but they was being courted by major labels. So they would take us with to their dinners and stuff. So like Sebadoh was getting taken out to eat by Columbia or something because they brought Mike Watt along to like impress us and make us want to be on, or not us, but Sebadoh. And Sebadoh would be like, "Well, I know you guys are. You got to check out godheadSilo. You're opening for us." And that
you guys are in that one.
And those major labels.
Remember right? Like,
what's that?
You're in that one Sebadoh video, if I remember right. Like,
yeah, in that video. Yeah. But so then the record execs come to the shows and it's a prank. You know, you're like, yeah. Columbia Records, that's exactly what they want, is two idiots. You know what I mean? It's like we would see them backstage after the shows and they didn't look at us. They did not want to make contact. They were just what the fuck is this stuff? Yeah. So anyway, then Sub Pop. So we found out that Sub Pop was interested, and which was like a dream, you know, for me and Dan. I used to, in Fargo, I wore that mother with font and the Sub Pop logo, like every butt chuck show. picture from any butt chuck show. I'm wearing that shirt. Like, it was totally like living the dream. And then because of Beck, I think Beck was signing a publishing deal or something. So they must ask him, like, who else do you think we should do a publishing deal with? So we ended up doing a publishing deal with BMG and this awesome woman, Margaret, who I don't understand why they spent money on it. And Sub Pop. And the way we bargained that stuff, I would always say, you've heard our band, right? Like you've heard our band? And they'd be like, yeah. And then they'd say, okay, then you can talk to the lawyer. Like,
Right.
the lawyer can do that. But I just want to be sure that you understand what
What
you're
you
getting
do.
into.
Yeah,
like,
what's the thing, the kind of band
it's
you
not
are.
changing, because it's not going to change. Yeah. It's not getting any better. It's not.
There's not going to be
Chris
a Dust Brothers
Pro.
mix going on. Yeah. Like that thing, you know.
Oh, but there was. So the Dust Brothers asked us to
Get out.
come. No. I'm trying to remember that, because there's a John Zorn one too, where we said no to John Zorn, and we said no to Dust Brothers, and because they were like, we didn't have any songs, and they were like, "We'll just do that album again. Come down, do whatever was the last record you did, but we'll do it our way." And I was like, "The fuck, I want to do that." Like, I didn't make sense. Like, now it does. And like the John Zorn thing was like, I was like, saxophone, like, no.
Yeah,
like,
you got it.
Saxophone is like, no. And that's the kind of stuff that gives you cachet now. You know, if there had been a Naked City record that was John Zorn, godheadSilo, that's a pretty rad thing to have. Yeah. And the Dust Brothers godheadSilo remix record would have been rad. But,
I would have had some cultural cachet. Yes. Hindsight.
But to do what? Like, what does that get you? Yeah. I mean, not to get me anything different than I have. So, but yeah, so Sub Pop, it was awesome. I mean, for me, that's the dream situation, and I still have a relationship with them, and I love Sub Pop. We had a really good group of what I would consider friends working there at the time, and they loved our band like that.
Yeah.
Like, it felt right. Dan and I, you should have Dan on here because he's awesome. He's so funny. But we have a lot of feelings. It's like, I have a lot of feelings, like I said, attached to this stuff. And if it feels right, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
And that Sub Pop felt so good and so great. Like, it was so good. And while it lasted, it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, I mean, I think
super happy.
I remember Skyward and Triumph seemed like a major leap forward for you guys, at least in terms of like visibility as well as just kind of firing on all cylinders. I mean, that's the one that I probably go back to.
Sure, yeah. And they got super pissed, but we had a recording budget. It was like a real contract. And I think we recorded that one because I still refused to do overdubs, you know? So
right.
That one I think it took 3 days. And we had a budget that we probably had like 100 days in the studio, and we just kept changing. Like, so we recorded it probably for $1,200, and we just split the rest of the giant recording budget.
Nice.
And yeah, so then, yeah, and it sounds like it, you know, and yeah, there's a whatever it is, a 13-minute one note bass
I think
filler
clear
solo.
The solo, yeah.
Does it really?
Yeah, well, the song clears.
And that's so that and that solo is, I've never talked about this. It's not like it's a big deal, but to me, it's really important because that's for Buzz. And what I heard a story of the Melvins in Germany or something with Hammerhead on one of those really early AMREP like crazy tours where they would take
like the whole
every
label.
AMREP band.
Yeah.
And then they would all share equipment. And Paul Sanders told me that Buzz, they were playing in it was like a strip club. So it had a catwalk, and Buzz and the crowd was just nasty. It wasn't going great. So Buzz just played one note and walked all the way up to the catwalk and just stood stared everybody down while he played this one note. And they were like, it was like 5 minutes of just this one note. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Sounds cool.
That's like, yeah, I was just like, no, that's badass. Like that, those guys used to talk about, they'd be like, Mike, you got to think like your bass shoots bullets. And you're like against the crowd, like you want to mow people down with your bass. I'd be like, no, you guys can do that. Like I want to make friends with my bass, you know? And when Buzz would do that super challenging stuff, it was like, I mean, one way back, I saw the Melvins in, I think it was 91 or 92 in Minneapolis at 7th Street Entry when Joe was playing bass. So on the Bullhead tour,
Yeah,
which is my all-time favorite record. And they cleared the room. Like they're headlining. People paid money to see them. And there's like 3 people left by the last song because it was
wow.
So it was so loud. It just was the most. It was brutalizing. It was such an experience. I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to be so confident that if everybody leaves, it's a success. Like that doesn't mean you stink. That means they're stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of Buzz's thing. Like doesn't mean I suck. That means they suck. Like that means they don't get it. And so that bass solo, I was just like, that's challenging to listen to. The payoff is Dan's favorite thing that we've ever done is like the part that comes after the solo.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it totally worked. So, and it's not a loop. Like I actually played it live, you know, in the studio. And that was like a tribute to Buzz because by that point he had done so much, like so supportive of us, me personally, and I mean that's something I think I heard you mention it in there. I listened to the Alex Newport episode.
Oh yeah,
where you talked to Alex, and Alex was like, "Yeah, how'd you meet Mike?" He's like, "Probably through Buzz." Like Buzz is, if he trusts you and likes your art, he will help you in these ways that only he can see those connections. Yeah, a lot of that was happening, and because you know we did enough like the Melvins that they could have just been these kids. We don't like kick us to the curb like every other fake Melvins band, you know. But he was so supportive, and so that, I mean, I've never talked to him about that stuff, but to me personally, that is why I did that. And so I stole his idea, but it was to honor him. So I feel like that's fair. Like I'm allowed to do that, right?
To me, it kind of enters a rare echelon of like, you know, Echoes by Pink Floyd, for instance, is like another one where it's just like, Oh, it's 22 minutes long. Like, and there's just this one like incredibly repetitive part. Like, and it goes like and it's also there's a shellac song too. They open the second record with it. And it's like 12 minutes, and there's like 9 minutes until like there's a drum change, and you're like, oh my god, something different happened. Amazing. Like there's a
that's tension. Yeah, and we didn't have, so like we aren't Slack or something where we can create this dynamic tension. Like there's such a limited palette available to us that
like two
it
people in the
was
band.
really hard. Yeah, but that song's on 8-string bass, so like that. Once I found the 8-string bass and figured out how to tune that the way I liked it, that that was another one. I just sat and spun them till it sounded right to me. Eventually, I wrote it down and figured it out on a tuner, but I don't know why the tuning works. But I know that it is what the sound I had in my head. I got it out of there, but I don't. There wasn't a lot of ways for us to create space or tension in our music, and that one like makes people punch each other. Like when we would play that song live, that is the fucking fight starter because that note is brutal. Like it's painful, and it lasts a while. And I'm waiting and to come in, and some night he thinks it's really fucking funny to make it last
Just keep it going.
too long. Yeah, because he's just like looking at me, or he's got a, like, I don't look up. I have really, really bad stage fright. So if I look up, my legs shake in this really weird way. So I never really look up, and I look at Dan, and he watches the crowd, and I can tell if I'm playing that note and it feels like it's been like 15 minutes that he's watching something be develop he thinks is really funny. And so I don't know, it's jokes, like it's inside jokes but in front of sometimes like 500 people. And so anyway, the payoff so the payoff of that song is like maybe the best thing we ever did and the most satisfying to get to. And we played some shows a few years ago, and we hit that. I still start crying. Like it's got so much meaning to Dan and I. And it's meant to be, right? And a lot of stuff is moving to me and not anybody else. But that one too, it's like, I hear from people whenever it's not like every day or anything like that, but people are like, that song, like when I figured out to wait for the payoff, when I opened the door, and I know now like it's super popular for bands to be really loud and really slow and maybe play a note for 15 minutes. I don't know if that's it, but it seems like you could build a whole band out of that song, now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And just
and they would
play different versions of it over and over. Yeah. So I don't know. We were trying in Sub Pop. I mean, think about that. They paid us a bunch of what I think is a bunch of money to make a record so that they could sell it. And it's got that. Like side B is pretty much one note. And I remember there was a lady, because we had not spies or anything, but like friends that worked there, and a fax came in from Sub Pop Europe that said, RE, godheadSilo, Skyward and Triumph. What the fuck am I supposed to do with this shit? And it was the head of sales of Sub Pop Europe.
Amazing. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry that you work at a record label. You're one of the people that doesn't get it, and it really sucks that your job is to try to sell that record, but
You don't get.
it's not for everybody. Yeah, like we weren't making it when the bass was trying to get on the radio. You know what I mean? Like we were trying to make ourselves happy and then find people like us. So that's just like hidden message type stuff. And that's like in North Dakota, if you skated in the 80s, you had to import your Vans from California or whatever. So if you saw a kid in Vans with an olive hole, you're one of the 5 skaters in North Dakota. You know what I mean? And Dan and I have always been that way, where it's like, oh, these are inside jokes, but people will share that with you. And then those are the people that
those are your people.
Like you're trying to meet. Those are the people that like your band, and you will like those people. Yeah.
Well, and then like
explanation of that.
You found the right band, but it's like, oh, that's the title track. I'll be like, oh,
yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
They
and the cover art too.
Yeah.
So the cover art's like a deep cover, like the eagle and a rainbow, and just like, well, beginning of the end probably for us. Yeah.
Well, okay, so then let's talk about Share the Fantasy, which of course alert listeners of the show know there's a piece of it on the now classic Alex Newport episode from his side of things. But other than the fact there's one of your rare covers in there. You know, you got the Phil Collins cover.
What's it? Oh, the Phil Collins. Yeah, that was Dan's idea because he thought he wanted to do that the whole time we were a band because he thought it would be really funny to just sit there while I had to do all this shit, like sing and play bass. Yeah, so he thought
the delivery
that's the only reason he wanted. The only reason he wanted to do that song was because he knew how hard it would be for me to like play by myself.
Yeah.
So we did it, and we didn't know how we were going to do it. You know, like that record's really weird and like painful feelings because it kind of led to us splitting up, and there's a lot of like personal shit that went on that won't go into, but yeah, Sub Pop was bummed because we spent like not even a tenth of the recording budget on the first record and just paid ourselves with the rest.
Right.
So the second record, it was like an escalating contract. So there was way more money even for the next record. And they were like, can you like maybe make some demos or like, we want to try to get this on the radio maybe? They weren't saying tone it down, but they were saying like by this point, you guys should be able to make something that like it be on the radio, you know?
Yeah.
So we decided we needed to spend some of the recording budget, and we wanted a producer, and I don't remember, but it had to have come through Buzz to get Alex, and Alex flew up. Dan and I, we did demos. So we did the whole album, but demo versions. So maybe like a week in the studio, which is insane because we could have made the album in a week. We had been making albums in 2 days or whatever. And so and then Dan was in Boston at the time. So he flew back to Boston. And in that time, this kind of weird stuff happened where Sub Pop asked me to make a solo record, and I didn't really want to do it. and because I think Jeremy Enoch from Sunny Day Real Estate had made a solo record.
Yeah, that's right.
Was
and
doing
that was
good.
A lot of
Yeah.
people.
And so they called me into this meeting, and Dan's not there, so it was weird to be just me. They were like, "Hey, we want you to do a solo record separate. We'll hire the band, we'll hire an orchestra." And I was like, "I don't even use a tuner. Like, you did." Is an orchestra gonna do? I
You're an
don't.
orchestra? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds awesome, but I've got you fooled. Like, you think I know what I'm doing? Like, I'm pretending so well now that people think I know how to make music that other people could understand besides Dan. Like,
Yeah.
and so Dan caught wind of that. I said I'd think about it, but probably not. Caught wind of that. Decided you're going to move to Seattle, so we would be like more like a band where we practice and record and tour from the same state at least. And but in that move, he hurt his arm really bad and severed all the tendons
Ooh.
in his wrist. Yeah. So Alex and I ended up finishing the record using the demo drum track. So we have no new drums to use, and we use a track during the demos, but Dan, that's not his style, and that's not our style of playing music.
Yeah.
Wasn't like really rigid on the grid or whatever. So like it had a lot of feel to it, and it just lands where it lands. If it's not on, who gives a shit? Like there's like 100 more tries to get it on the one coming up, So
yeah.
So Alex and I built that album. We spent like 3 weeks in this really fancy studio called a Vast that everybody
In Seattle. Yeah.
and and had to like delay all the do all this crazy shit to the drums to get them to be the more of a rigid structure to then play over. Like, because if Dan's in front of me, I can play to anything, but if it's on a tape and I can't see when the snare hits come in,
right.
It kind of needs to fall near the one. So yeah, we built that whole thing, spent all that money. So stupid. And Dan and I had a huge argument in the studio before he left, and it was just really getting hard to be two people in a band, and we're both trying to make a living off it at the time, and pressure from the label to make a radio song out of that stuff. It wasn't like intense pressure, but it was like we knew that was probably going to be our last one on top if we didn't come up with something that would earn our money back, because we were costing them money. And of course, we feel like super guilty about that. So it ended up just like he wasn't able to finish the record. So Alex and I finished it, and like Alex said, he made me sing, which I fucking hate hearing myself sing, and he made me really, really work hard at it, because he felt like that was, that's why we had a producer, because we just kept making the same shit over and over again.
It's just going to sound the same otherwise, so makes sense.
Which is fine with, so yeah, that record, and then we couldn't tour because Dan got hurt, and I know we won't have time to talk about the next band, but that's what led to me kind of starting the next band. Was the day we didn't break up, but it was impossible. Dan could not hold a drumstick. we played one show on that record because we had a contest. It was like if you could guess the lyrics to one of the songs, whoever got closest, we would come at your house. You got a case of Mountain Dew and a Pottery Barn gift certificate or something like that. Like Dan set up the prize package, so yeah, Dan Dan jokes.
Classic
So,
Dan. Yeah.
And it turned out, yeah, this Olympia, who our friend Aaron in Olympia won it, and so we played a show, and Dan figured out that he could put BMX grips on his drumstick and kind of kung fu grip that, and we played a show, and it's awesome, like y'all were, you know, and then he had to go back, and the rehab on his arm was years long, like years and years long, and then he moved away to do that, and I started
That's
playing,
Enemymine
doing
became-
Enemymine.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Because you started off originally, well, you played with Zach at first. That was like
Yeah, and I listened to the Zach episode, which was really anxiety inducing to listen to that. Because you knew it was coming, and
Yeah.
he did a good job of leaving me room to wiggle off the hook for that. But yeah, that's when probably Zach and I probably should have just stayed friends and not been in a band together. He used the word shit show, and I wouldn't use that word, but it was really awful. And it wasn't because of Zach. Like it had nothing to do with Zach. Dude I mean, the reason I want to be in a band with him is because he's fucking awesome at playing bass and making art. And he's just such a good dude. And I brought him into a situation that I didn't fully understand myself. And the drummer was a challenge. Great drummer, but really challenging personality. And Zach stuck it out pretty good. And the night before the first tour, we had problems and we had to cancel the tour. And it was like, there was just no way out of it. And then it was just like, you can stick around and not have fun for next year and maybe get a record out of it, or you can move back to Minnesota. It was awful. Yeah, it was awful. Really, really, really challenging. And it's one of those things, like he and I, it was kind of like, I feel like a mutual admiration. You know, like I really loved what he did. He liked what I did. And we would always meet up when they would play or we would play, you know, we would see each other and hang out, and we got along great. And it was funny to me, the silo and from low, like that's funny, like the juxtaposition of like the quietest band and the loudest band to like then make a band out of it.
Right, exactly. Let's put them together.
Yeah, but you know, you base your whole band on a joke. You need substance eventually, and I don't think that what we end up doing was what Zach exactly wanted to do musically. But he wrote all the good bass parts that ended up on the album. Like he wrote all that stuff, and it, like, I wish he had the attachment to it that I do, but it's the same thing. Like it's really, and I get why he would never listen to that record, because it wasn't like the music isn't the bad part. It's like the relationship, the dynamic, like what he moved into that I didn't know I was bringing him into was fucking awful. And he lasted way longer than he probably should have. He should have taken off instantly. So, and that band's heartbreaking too, because it, to me, had so much potential, was just wasted, like burnt. It burnt us all out trying to maintain that band. So.
Which is the same, because the music's good. I mean, like, and it's different.
Oh, dude,
it's
that record. and it's a different band. You know, I'd figured out this tune on the 8 string, and like, oh, that's a whole band. Like when I get the knobs, like the tuning pegs right, and like, I'm like, oh, that note, I can make a whole band out of that. And I wanted to be a band again, hadn't existed like that. I really like doing is being in a band that there isn't another one yet.
Right.
And so Enemymine, I felt like was the same thing. And, you know, yeah, some tough luck with record labels, but we're gonna get to this thing where you're like, the one consistent thing with all these like failed bands and relationships, that's me. Like as we tell these stories and oh, this band fails, that drum quit, that drummer kind of lost his shit, everybody out. Yeah. So I have a part in all of this, and I realize that. And so I wanted to ask you though. So when you're talking to Zach,
I saw him at Catterwall. Actually, I saw him in person a few weeks ago.
Oh,
actually,
cool.
He's doing
yeah. How's he doing? I mean,
he's doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he,
as well as anyone can.
Said, so I gotta ask you. Yeah, yeah. Well, you said I gotta ask you about Enemymine, and I've heard these rumors. I've heard stories about what happened. Maybe you can tell me what happened. And he said, "Oh, it was a shit show." But I'm curious. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. But what are the rumors? Like, what is if there's a rumor about that band?
The rumors is just that it was
awful.
No, just it was contentious. That it wasn't a happy time internally. Like the music was great, but maybe it was not the best time.
Me,
just in general, I didn't. I had no specifics of any kind. I just heard that it was contentious.
Okay.
Like
yeah, it was tough. It was
tumultuous.
Really bad.
Tumultuous is probably the best way to describe it. And this is like years ago, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, and
yeah. But it was. I mean, I don't blame him. Like I said, if I wasn't so invested in it, I would have left. And I mean, it's a bummer that it never did happen. But Scott Jernigan from Carp was going to be the drummer in that band because we were having a lot of trouble with the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Scott and I were talking, and him and Dan were like best I've never seen. Used to live together. They had the drum set set up in the living room of their house, kick drum to kick drum.
Right. Right
Dan
next
and Scott
to
would drum, like facing each other and just drum for hours.
That's awesome.
And like be screaming at each other and just drum. Yeah, they were super sad that he's gone, but that was a
shock.
That was a plan, and it wasn't anything. But that was a plan to like try to get him. He wanted to do it, and I wanted him to do it. But I'm really bad at kicking people out or asking them to leave, and we just couldn't. I don't know, and I will stick with a bad situation for. I just will, like I'll stick to stuff till it's dead and buried, and that is so hard to be in and stay in and actually survive. That I'm glad that record got made, and it's my favorite sounds that I've ever made and put on a record, but I can't listen to it. It was so hard to be in.
I get that. I think you was it around the same time that you started that Mike and the Melvins record?
Here we go. Yeah, what's the rumor about that? Where did I go for 7 years? That's and I always hear that
he's farming alpacas.
Oh,
no, I don't.
Kunka, yeah, well, I mean, we have goats. Yeah, we have fiber goats.
I think
anyway, yeah. So that
you sold all your gear at some point and like just were off the grid.
They stole all my stuff. Yeah, but that was way later. So Okay, so the Melvins were opening for Tool, and that Tool record that they were touring on, Enema, however you say that.
Yeah.
That record got like, I don't give a shit if it's popular or not. I can, if it hits my spot, like it hits my spot, and that Tool record just like nothing else. I mean, I didn't listen to anything else for like a year, and then the Melvins are on Tool, and Buzz is like, "You should come with. You should come with." I'm like, okay, like that sounds awesome. So I got in the van with them, and I can't remember how many shows. It was like 10 or 11 shows or something. And the van were asking me like, "What's going on with godheadSilo?" You know, and I was like, "We're kind of seems like we're done." And then they were like, "What's left on the contract?" And I told them the number for the third record that never got made, and they were like, "All right, so we're got it." Buzz, okay. So I'm in godhead. It's me, you, and Dale. And I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. And he was just like, yeah. So me, you, and Dale will make the record. We'll call it godheadSilo, and then we all get paid. You know,
right.
Buzz is always
Yeah.
He had the number. It was a number. Like that was a real record. There was money for that record, and I was just like, no. godheadSilo is me and Dan. And then I think I told him about the solo thing, the weirdness with Sub Pop, where they had asked me to do a solo record, and there was money to do that. It's not as much. And Buzz was like, well, yeah, let's do that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, like that's the Melvins. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like to me and to probably,
yeah, I get it.
Well, and to the rest of the world, I can tell you, some people that makes sense, but I don't think I have imposter syndrome or anything like that, but I know the difference between me and the Melvins, right? Like to me, it's a real, there's a gap there. I'll say that. And I was like, told him, no way, like that's really stupid. Like I would never do that to the Melvins legacy for one, and embarrass myself. Like,
right.
You know, and then we just kept hanging out that whole tour. We went to Disneyland, everything. It was just the best time. And of course, Kevin was playing bass at that time. So it's like one of my favorite all-time bass players in my favorite all-time band. I mean, it was just that was such a nice trip. And then I came home and told my wife about it. She was, because I went from saying yes to everything, like in the acid beatbox phase, to saying no to everything in the, like, turn down Lollapalooza side stage, turn down like 5 European tours, turn down the Dust Brothers, turn down John Zorn.
Yeah.
Because I just was sick of it. Like I was not having fun anymore, and came home from that trip and talked to my wife about it. And I was like, they offered to do this record with me, and I told them no. And she's just like, what? They hadn't at that time made any of those records with other people. So this would have been the first.
Right. Yeah,
like,
because that was
Crybaby or whatever.
Yeah, that was before they did the one with all the guest singers. That was before
Yeah.
the opera one.
I did a track. Yeah, I did a track. In that session, we recorded a song for Beck to sing on for that Melvins record, but Beck
that's right. I forgot about that.
Did it? It was rad. They had a crazy tuning. Like I remember having to use a tuner and just being like, but it's like C something. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know name. Like I know the names and notes, but I can't. I just think differently. And Buzz was like, just put it in C. You know, like I'm like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to do that. You gotta show me with dot. Point at the dot so I can put my finger on it. And then And she was just saying, like, who gets to do that? Like,
Yeah,
who gets who are the Melvins asking to make a record with?
Yeah.
Like, it's not happening. Like, since then, it's happened a lot more, which I think is Buzz likes to stay active by like bouncing stuff to other people, but at that time they were still just the Melvins. So I talked to Sub Pop and they said, yeah, like there's money. You have to be serious. You can't give us like a Melvins prank record, you know, like they had that track that was
digital, or something.
Digital, yeah, like Digital Silence or whatever that track was, yeah. And they made us, like when we were recording it, they made us like hold the phone up while we were recording so they would hear that there was actual like jams
like
happening. Yeah, before they would like, yeah, before they would send money, like that there was actually like pushing play on the tape and like making the sound come out of the speakers. But yeah, that was like in the middle of Enemymine. Like that, I think it was after Zach left or right, because some of the songs that I had were going to be Enemymine songs, and we just met in San Francisco. I barely remember this stuff, but they had a practice spot still in San Francisco. I think Dale was still living there, and we spent a week being a band, showing each other riffs, and of course they're fucking pros and can polish a turd, like, you know. I'd be like, I got this, and it's like, you know, I'd be like, yeah, my drummer in Enemymine is having trouble with this count or whatever, because like I was getting into, like I was really into counting, so like I would try to do odd, like without knowing how to play music properly, it's hard for me to break rules, to break the rules. So I really want to play on time signatures, but it's really hard for me because I don't have that skill.
Yeah.
So I was trying really hard to like play odd time signatures, and our Enemymine, Danny, the drummer, was having trouble with a couple. So I was like, well, I'll bring those to Dale. First try, like he hears the riff once, into it with double bass drums, you know. I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, immediately.
Like that's the difference between you and me. I can't do that. Like I can write the riff that everybody else then piles onto, but I can't like Buzz show me a guitar and me play bass to it. I don't know how to do that. Like I've never had to do that, so I didn't bother learning.
It's not in your
But,
toolbox.
yeah, so we did that, and we recorded at Tim Green's house, and we almost done first session, and then we were supposed to have like a 2-week break, I think, and it turned into 17 years. Yeah.
Just lost touch of it?
I don't know. I have trouble with momentum. Well, if I lose momentum, I will turn my head and focus on something else. Like I kept playing music.
Yeah, you got
I
that
made
low
other
that.
records. Yeah, I made, but part of what happened was like it wasn't between me and the Melvins, but there was like this weird conflict. Like the studio was in Tim's basement, so he had house. We're there all the like when we're recording. I was sleeping in the studio, like in front of my amps, and like wake up and work on songs. Buzz would sleep there.
Yeah,
and I think, and we go upstairs to the kitchen, use the bathroom. So it's like all of a sudden, Tim's housemates have these like 4 other housemates that are like, we're all watching The Simpsons in the living room, and it's their house.
Yeah.
And I think there was a conflict there because Tim called and said, you guys can come finish recording, but you can't stay here. And I was just like, and then Buzz said, fuck that. Because Buzz is like that. I don't know if you hang out with Buzz at all, but it's like,
oh yeah, no,
he makes decisions. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and it's not just like
Whoa,
guitar
right.
parts where he's like every part is, he makes decisions and doesn't doubt them for a second.
Yep.
And he thought that wasn't, and now, so this is just the way I remember it. So maybe it's more flattering to me to remember it this way, I'm not sure, but a lot of the story is like lost to time because nobody really cared that much when it happened. But yeah, this was like, fuck, then we're not going to finish the record. And I was like, okay, that suits me because I don't want to write these fucking lyrics. Like, I hate that part and I hate singing.
Right.
And that's what's left, right?
Yeah.
So we shelved it for what we thought was going to be a month, and then it turned out that tape machine is a Kai 16-track inch that runs at crazy speed. Nobody runs those anymore, so we have these tapes that you can't just take to another studio because they're on this fucked up format. And then they just sat and sat, and I kept like, well, if I finish it, I couldn't make myself think I deserve to be in a band with those guys. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Like it, yeah. I mean, I'm really intense with this stuff, and I don't want to make a shitty record. I want to blow this opportunity that people would kill for, and I feel like I don't deserve, right? So, and then I would hate those songs, and then I'd really love those songs, and I'd be like, there's no fucking way I can relearn those songs.
Right.
And I put all this weird pressure on myself to try, and I have a problem too, like I can't talk on the telephone really, so I don't know why. So like calling Buzz to say, because like texting didn't exist, right? So it's like to call Buzz, say, hey, we should work on that. Like I know I'm talking your ear off tonight, but this is like 20 years of not talking. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
look, so I don't talk.
You've heard the show. Like, you know what the show is.
But so like I don't know
what the show is.
I don't normally, but I don't normally speak so a lot. And so microphones and like I've never been able to order through a drive-through. Not sure why. Like I cannot speak into that microphone. I have a hard time with waiters and waitresses, and telephones are really hard for me. So calling Buzz to like organize it, I didn't make myself do it. And so it eventually, I mean, passage of time, we'll skip a couple bands, and I went to a psychologist because I was like, I don't understand why I can't do this thing, not call Buzz on the phone, but I have this record that for any other person would like be the pinnacle of like a career, right? Like for the type of music I made.
Yeah. Doesn't get much better. Yeah.
I could not make myself do it. I could not sit down with the 4-track and fix it. And so I went to the psychologist, and he kind of explained to me what was probably going on. So I'm not going to get into I finally got the guts to call Buzz, and he called me back in like, it was like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
And I was just like, guys, I'm on the phone anyway, but like having to say, hey, I'm still exist. Like, yeah, I'm in the woods, but, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, we're coming to Seattle. We'll set dates. We're gonna do it. Great. That was easy. Whoa.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
why
there
did
you
that take 17 years and all this fucking stressing out about making this one phone call, you know? And it's nothing about Buzz. I mean, the guy, he's never been to me ever. Like, not all the, I've toured with him in every band I've been in, so probably like 6 US tours. He's just been the best to me, and I couldn't make myself call him. So I go see him in Seattle. It's in October, and we're like, February works for everybody. Come on to LA, we'll finish it. Got the studio, awesome. I go home. I go to the storage unit to get my equipment to relearn the songs, and somebody broke in that night, stole everything, including the tapes, including the Melvin tapes. Yeah, and like, I lost it. Like, that was the worst, one of the worst times of my life for sure. And
that
but
I remember very well when that happened. That was I felt,
and it was, I can't even, like, that's when you stop some shit. Like, it fucked my whole mindset where you're like, oh, there's a safety net.
Yeah.
Like, the cops know who took my stuff, but they won't go get, they don't want to do anything about it. It was really intense. Like, I'd finally overcome this anxiety to make it happen, and then as soon as so anyway, then I had luckily had sent tapes out to be digitized, because, and somebody, so they actually didn't steal the tapes, they stole the tapes and the hard drive that had the digitized version on it.
Mhm.
I had copied the digitized version at my buddy Matt Remine's house onto his hard drive so I could relearn the riffs
Nice.
at one of the failed, like, resurrections.
Right.
And I left a couple pedals at his house. So we got it, and I learned it, and my 9-year-old daughter at the time wrote the lyrics, which was awesome, so I didn't have to. And went down to LA, and it took like 2.5 hours in the studio, and it was done. And I was like,
it took how long in the studio, you said?
My part, 2.5 hours. Like, yeah, I was done, and I was done.
And it was what, 16 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, run the marathon, stop a foot before the finish line. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, so I try really hard not to regrets, you know, just be like, well, but I also have agency. So, like, I know I fucked that up. And I also know, you know, had I not fucked that up and we make Mike and the Melvins, we probably tour it. But that was the plan, was to then be like, Mike and the Melvins would open for the Melvins, and then I would also play bass in the Melvins on that tour. So it'd be me and Kevin on bass.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, which would have been fucking amazing, right?
Would have been pretty
For
cool.
me,
Yeah.
not for everybody. Yeah,
That would have been cool for
not
everybody.
necessarily for everybody else. And then I know, like, how things ended up shaking out. Kevin leaves the band. If I had stuck around and been available and been a good partner, maybe I end up in Melvins for a while. But I know stuff. I would have been kicked out of the Melvins so fast.
They work very differently than you do. Yeah.
It just wouldn't have been like, I'm a good worker. Like, I work really hard.
Sure, but just musically,
it would have been really tough, because Buzz, those guys fucking rip, and they're pros, and he can say, oh, that's a C sharp or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to click on my tuner and move my finger till it says C sharp on the pedal. I'm like, oh, It's between those two dots or whatever, right? And just also my attitude and like I think, like I said, every band we're talking about doesn't exist anymore, and they all included me. And I think I can be a lot to like tour with and be around. And
Yeah.
I think I had ever stopped being scared of the Melvins and acted like I was one of the Melvins, that would have got me kicked out so fast, and I would have deserved it. So in the end, I'm still friends with the Melvins, right?
Yeah.
But had I been in the Melvins and had my heart broken, probably wouldn't still be friends. So yeah, but yeah, then it came out, and
It's a good record. It's good.
it's fine. Yeah, I was hoping we would tour, and we talked about it, but those guys are such a like machine, you know.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. So,
And
that's
they plan things
totally
out, like,
fine. I'm
years in
glad.
advance. Like years in advance, you know. they have so many things going on at a given moment in time.
Well, that was with they were going out with Napalm Death, and they
Yep.
said I could come along, and we could do a couple songs, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, like I need to earn a living. Like I can't
Can't just
I
drop
can't
it.
leave for 6 weeks to like we're gonna sell the same amount of records because it's got the Melvins on it.
Just those guys, yeah.
Whether I play those shows or not. So I chose not to, and they were in with that. So I mean, if it ever came up, somebody wanted to pay us to play, I sure would do it. But yeah, I'm glad I finished it. I mean, it's just like a trophy, you know. Like that's all it is for me. Is it like I had that opportunity. Not a lot of people have had that opportunity, and I'm proud of it.
So since we've gone kind of longer on the longer side anyway, which I'm totally for, you know, this is not the Guardians of the Threshold or Protonic necessarily, but like
of that is it's one story for 18 instead of one.
But I would feel remiss not to at least touch on Dead Low Tide and Smoke and Smoke. So Dead Low Tide I saw kinda mostly from the outside waiting for my friend to bottom Slims in SF. Mostly
probably open in
what's that?
Probably open in for the Melvins or what?
Yeah. And here's the rub of it. My friend / bandmate, I had his ticket, or like I was meeting him outside to like let him in or something. So I saw most of the show from like the entranceway, basically waiting for him. Little did I know he had already come in and was like rocking out up front and like hanging out. And I was like, and it was like your only tour.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, that band
a lot.
I like that band too, and it was kind of born out of like Enemymine was doing great. Like our shows in Seattle were big enough. I mean, it was you could kind of almost live off of Enemymine, but it was so challenging to be in. Yeah. And we were hanging out at this bar called the Off Ramp at the time, and Cody from Murder City Devils was the bartender, and I was reading The Rocket or The Stranger or whatever the weekly was at the time, and it had this big story about Murder City Devils call it quits or whatever.
It's a big deal before they got back together. 20 of
them. Cody walked up, was like, "Mike, what's up?" And I was like, "What are you gonna do, dude?" And I said something like, "Dude, if you need a bass player, just like, I'm into it." And he was like, "Holy shit. Whoa." And then Ryan, who was playing bass, and me, my time was, "Yeah, that's what you should do. Start a band with Murder City Devils." Like, haha. You know, like, I was like,
yeah.
Okay. Like, now I'm gonna, dick. Like,
now that you're a dick about it, I will.
Just to win this argument. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna fuck myself so bad just to win, just because you thought it was a bad idea, you know?
Yeah.
So stupid. I do shit like that all the time. So then we figured it out. Like we had to practice. Like it wasn't really good style fit of like where Enemymine was, and where I was, and where what had kind of caused Murder City Devils to split up was like some of their band wanted to go in a different direction, right?
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
wasn't.
Which is
it wasn't towards Enemymine, like where Enemymine was. You know, like that wasn't. They weren't trying to be some impossible metal band.
Right.
They wanted to be like they were really into La Savvy Fav, like that. So like that. Like Zach had said in his podcast.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Pretty girls make graves.
So,
like,
and you know, exactly, yeah. So, and that that's something Zach said too, where he said he wanted us to be like Slayer, New Order, which he never we never talked about New Order, but he wanted like dance metal.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to count, because like the people that I'm trying to impress are going, that was 11. Like
right.
That was 11.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Where did you hear? Wait, that's 7. That's 9. That's 11. That's 4, you know? So I'm up there, like that's what's fun to me, is to like, it's like rudiments, but you're like exercising part of your brain you don't get to use. And the guitar player wanted to be in La Savvy Fav, so like he wants dance music 4/4.
Yeah.
And I want 17/11 or whatever. So, and then that, you know, oh man, we got along great. And I love to practice. So like Cody and I would practice for like 6 hours a day, just bass and drums. And we would write all these riffs, and then the rest of the band show up and just no, that. And so we would make compromises, and like the first 7-inch, I don't know if you've heard the 7-inch version, but that is great.
I don't have it anymore. I lost it, but yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
I think I have
whatever. It rips. And we recorded it at the same place that Enemymine recorded, which is Uptone in Tacoma with my buddy Wes. And he just knew how to make my bass sound the way I heard it. Wes also heard it. So that record just rips. Like we did it in a day. It's 4 songs or whatever. And then we toured twice, signed to a label that wasn't really a label. It was weird. And I got sick on the last tour. Like the last week of the last tour, it just seemed like I had the flu.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in the studio, started tracking. I got so sick, I couldn't be in the studio anymore.
Wow.
And it turned out to be whooping cough, which hadn't been in Washington for like 50 years. Yeah. So I caught it on tour somewhere.
Yeah.
Ended up having it for 11 months. And I coughed so hard I broke my ribs. And I coughed so hard the sphincter valve in my throat wouldn't stay shut anymore. So if I had eaten right before a coughing attack, like the food I wasn't throwing up, but the valve in my throat was stuck open, coughing so much.
Gee,
it was gnarly. So, and when the doctors haven't seen whooping cough for 50 years, they don't know what you have.
They don't know. Yeah. That's not the first thing they're going to think of. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was awful. It was awful. And so we have this half-finished record, and I'm a total dick about, like, no, those are my backup vocals.
Yeah.
One who says everything. I got a word in the song. That's mine. Nate can't do that.
Yeah.
When I know Nate should have just done my vocals, right? Like, everybody's waiting for me to get well enough to sing these 3 sentences to finish the record, and it's like I'm being super stubborn, and I'm also kind of dying, like possibly dying.
Yeah.
And those guys were, so they've been on tour for like 10 years. There's like tour album, and that's what we were planning to do, and that's what we were doing. And we got home from tour, and then all of a sudden there's this break, and nobody in that band had a break for like 5 years. And first Gabe, who was our road manager, who's part of the band, awesome dude, he quit. He said, "You can hire me, but I can't just be in this band because we can't work." And then the guitar player quit, and then Cody quit, and then like there's our band. So, but I don't have any hard feelings about that band, but I was definitely the reason it stopped existing. It was not my personality. I don't think it was my physical ability to be in that band, to finish the record. So yeah, another sad story, sad, happy beginning, sad ending.
I mean, it's a ripping band, and I was doubly pissed that
it was great.
I really didn't get the chance to honestly see you. I heard you. I mean, that's my my tale. Yeah. But like I was like, and that was their last tour. Of course it was.
Yeah, I love being in that band because I didn't have to tour manage or drive.
Right.
And I'd never been in a band where I wasn't like in charge of the whole thing. And it was awesome. I mean, it was like a vacation. And Gabe like knew how to, he made me put numbers on all my equipment. Cause I have weird setups. It's not like just a normal guitar or whatever. And pedals are all up, and I like them a certain way, which is not, I think it's normal to me, but it's not normal. And he learned how to set it up so I could just walk out on stage and
your stuff's ready for it.
That to me, I was just like, oh God, like it's like getting a back rub. Like I just was
exactly amazing.
Yeah, and then there's 5 people. So I'm used to being in a 2-person band with no roadie.
Yeah.
With the same amount of equipment as a 5-person band. We split that work up over 5 people, and it's like I carried my bass case and 1 cabinet, and it's done. And then I leave for dinner, and I come back for sound check, and it's exactly where I want it. I just have to walk out, and it goes. Like I make it go, and it's just like. So it was the most fun I've ever had playing music was that band. Because they knew how to do it, and I didn't know how to do it. Like the way that I always did it, I do everything still the hardest way possible. And that wears out. That wears people out. Yeah, like my cabin that I'm living in. Yeah, that's, oh God. I built it myself, but not the easy way.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know why. Like to me, there's more satisfaction. Like I don't think it matters to anybody else that there's no overdubs on those records I was taught. But to me, I know how hard it is to make that much sound out of 1 string or 4 strings or 2 people. And that's really rewarding to me that we took this hard road to what you get today with like a amp simulator and a keyboard. You could make that whole record
easily. Yeah.
Probably most of those sounds, right? But I would never do it that way. I would find the hardest way. And those guys way toured. Yeah. Yeah, and the way those guys toured was like the right way. Like we had a trailer full of equipment. They had a fucking Xbox in the van, so you could sit on the floor. Cody was really into Spider-Man games, so I played video games, but I would sit and watch.
Yeah.
But he sit on the floor of the van playing Spider-Man for hours, and it was so much more fun than being mad at your partner.
Right.
And there's nobody, like
there's nobody to
there's 6 hours
mediate.
to
There's
drive.
nobody. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna you light it on fire while you're sleeping. Yeah, it just was like the right way to do it, and I would have done it forever. Like we were making enough money, we were making records, people were interested enough, and it was satisfying enough that it wasn't like a job. It was like a band. And it ended when I got so sick and couldn't come back. And then everybody else, I mean, I think I'm sure Cody is happier in business than he was in that.
I just saw him Caterwall too, and the next day he flew out to.
Oh
Europe.
yeah, he played.
Like the next morning,
He
went out. I was like, what?
Yeah, and that's Cody. I mean, you talk about a pro. Obviously, like those two guys that ended, like Jared and Cody, ended up in the Melvin. That's not what happened if I had joined the Melvins. Like I'm telling you, I would have got a bus ticket from like the third show. Like they would have sent me home.
You would have gotten the
so fucking fast.
You would have gotten the Dave Mustaine treatment.
Whatever. Yeah. Or they would have kicked me into the U-Haul, like with the shirts. Like, you can ride with the shirts, or you can go home, you know?
Yeah,
and I'm self-aware enough to know that. Yeah. And like Jared and Cody, that's a different thing. And like the setup is the same as me and Dan, right? But it's different. And Jared and Cody are really, really different from me and Dan. So if you would have tried to put me and Dan in the Melvins, that never would have worked. But if you put Jared and Cody in the Melvins, it's fucking awesome, right? And Cody, the dude's a pro. I had never played with I mean, this isn't a diss on my bandmates, but besides Dale, for that one bit of time, I hadn't played with a pro like that. That was just like, you know, like Dan and I were, first it would be BMX bikes, then it was fanzines, that was music.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing ever. Cody was like playing with a fucking clock, you know, like.
Right, absolutely.
It's exact precision. Yeah. And great bandmate, like super fun to be in a band with. So yeah, and that's a sad one to me, because it had potential, you know, that
yeah.
The rest of them were maybe somebody's fault, probably my fault. They quit happening, but that one, you know, I could not help getting sick like that. And
no, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, couldn't continue. Yeah, and my voice, I can't sing anymore like that, and my voice box is destroyed, and it just was from all the stomach acid in my throat. It was awful. So everything changed for me. But
was that one of the reasons why when you and Dan got together, you did Smoke and Smoke, because you wouldn't have to worry about it. Spencer's got that kind of.
Yeah, I love Spencer.
Who's great, and
that's another one. Like, well, whatever. Like some people don't like it, but I don't give a shit. Like I like it, and
I thought it was
like
awesome.
We were making it for me. Yeah, and I can't say, well, number one, I don't like being in front. Like that always was really hard for me. And singing into a microphone is really hard for me. And I love Spencer. Like he's the frontman. Like he's the real deal. And he's also a great friend and like a super talented artist, and his lyrics, I love his lyrics, I love his voice, I love being in a band with him. And he's similar for me to Dan, but Dan does it the way I like it. So I kind of don't need anybody but Dan, you know?
Right.
And if
Sure.
personalities never got in the way, it's like if Dan and I could have stayed married, basically, figured out how to stay together without like grinding on each other like that, I never ever would have played with another drummer. Like there's no way, because he does it the way I like it. And I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I hear it. And Spencer, when he sings, it's so fucking loud. Like I thought, because I scream when I don't sing, like I'm screaming.
Yeah.
The meter would be like that, and then Spencer would get up to do his vocal and just like peg meter.
Yeah,
like,
he like
so much
that guy's
more.
like such a
I don't know. Yeah, and I was just like, oh,
comes up from somewhere low down or something. It's
I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have it. So like Spencer has it, and I'm always happy to like defer to somebody who knows what they're doing and be like, well, I know how to play weird bass and I'm confident, but I can't do that. And I like the Jesus Lizard. I really like the danger, seeing the Jesus Lizard always felt really dangerous, you know, and the way the way I understood it, or somebody told me, they just practiced as a band without the singer. So they would write songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, hey, David Yao, check this out. Like, sing something, like make something fit, right?
Yeah.
And all I wanted to worry about was the music. And I built this bass synthesizer thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was with all these extra strings and stuff. It was like I had this idea, but I wasn't sure how to make it happen. I kind of made it happen. And then Dan wanted to start playing again, so he moved out here to Washington, and it was great. It was a blast. Like we would sit and count together. It was really fun. Like I just like to count. Sounds really weird, but I'll just sit there and be like, okay, we're gonna do 7, 9, 11, 13. Back.
Yeah.
And he was happy to like learn that, like challenge his brain to do it too. You know, like it was because we came from like riding bikes in front of his mom's house and doing the same trick over and over and over again, and then your mind learns where your hands and feet are supposed to be, and then you finally land it, and then you do it every time, you know? So that's what we were doing, was basically BMXing with our instruments. And then Spencer would come and be like, he loved it. Like Spencer loved being in that band, which made me really proud. And he was really proud to sing over that crap. And and we got on Princess Records, which was the Savvy Favs label, and we did a tour, and then my wife and I decided to start a family, and I was just like, I feel like being in a band, it takes a certain amount of ego that makes me act like a person that I don't always want to be, because you have to believe what you're doing is worth $5 to pay a seat, right? Or $50 to pay a listen to. So I don't naturally feel that way. Like I don't have that kind of confidence. So I had to like, I would become a person that I wasn't really happy being in a band. And I knew if I had a child and my focus was on something that like fed my ego rather than like benefited the child, or like I don't know how to explain it. And this is like interesting because we're talking about shit from 30 years ago, but I feel like you can't think the best thing you've ever done 40 years ago. You can't think that way. And as a parent, you really can't think that way, because then you are
right, exactly.
Your mind is like your mind is like wishing you were on tour with Melvins, or like making this record, or like, you know, people clapping for you or even booing you or throwing shit at you, like any reaction, like that's addictive. Like I miss the clapping. Like I miss the people saying good show or whatever, and the records or whatever. But I knew that I couldn't support a family on the money I was making playing music. And I couldn't, if I were to try to do that, I would have to stay gone 6 months a year. I just wasn't going to be that type of parent. So I talked to Dan and Spencer, and I was like, I'm having a baby. We can still practice. I love practice. Like I love practicing, but I'm not touring. Like I got it. This is my new band, and it's been really successful. But then you hear like, oh yeah, you disappeared into the woods and all this stuff, and I was like, I just went fame. Like I wasn't. Like I still haven't done drugs. Like since I did that acid in '91 on Hammerhead tour, like I've never done it again. Like I don't have problems. I have interests that take me away from that, and I try to have really healthy interests for a family life. It has been super successful, and I'm proud daily of what I'm accomplishing. I mean, I'm a custodian. I'm a primary school custodian, and today threw the garbage bag so fucking high in the room, had a teacher catch it in the garbage can, and the kids lost their shit, like screaming, cheering. And I was like, that's the same. To me, there's no difference. Like, I'm happy that it's happily throwing garbage bags in there on tour. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's
like chopping
I like
down
it when people appreciate whatever. Like, I'm happy when people appreciate my ideas, because that's my currency. Is like, I don't implement them correctly, have what turn out to be original ideas, and if it's thrown in a garbage bag and I can tie it in this way that it takes forever to float down, you know, I'm super proud of that. I mean, it doesn't have the legacy of Skyward and Triumph or whatever, but to me the feeling is really similar, and I have to live that way because of all the feelings attached to the music and the scene and the friends you had at the time, some of whom are not anymore, who are not your friends anymore. It's just too intense to live in, for me, to live in that time period. And it's fun to reflect on and tell stories, but tomorrow I have to go clean the lunchroom. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, it
like
absolutely makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
Like I mean, those records exist, and that's awesome. But if I on my, who I was, not who I was because I'm this person, but what I did for a living, and that what I do now is somehow below that, like value wise,
that wouldn't be how you see it at all.
You will burn yourself out. Yeah, you hate your life because your life was so rad then, but oh cool, I was saving up food stamps and sleeping in a van in 100-degree rest area with my best friend from Fargo. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't rad. Like, parts of it were awful. parts of it were awesome. And my life right now is like so much, there's almost no parts. Do you know what I mean? So like and that's what I think makes me different, and why like the Melvin's record can take 17 years to finish is because I'm like,
because it's you, and that's
I
how
have hobby. I get, yeah, like I can get a hobby that will take me away from music for 10 years, and then music will be my hobby again. Like I have this giant synthesizer in the barn that's taller. I mean, it's bigger than me, and I've had it for years. And I have it set up, so I just have to flip a switch and it starts. And sometimes I just go out there and let it run.
Right.
And sometimes I move the plugs around and make songs out of it, and they will end up in like snowboard videos and stuff. But I don't. What I liked about the modular and why I got it was because you can't save it. Like you turn it off, it's gone.
Right.
So I would work hard, make a song with beats, all this, and the thing's insane. Show it to my wife. She'd be like, that's rad. I'd be like, as soon as I turn it off, it's over. Or if the temperature changes, the count goes off. You know,
right.
There's like
It's
one
different
module. Yeah, resistor change temperature, it's off, gets up, and because I thought I was hung up on monetizing music or monetizing art, because you're at some point when people are paying you to do it, you write 10 songs, you get $50,000.
Yeah.
So I tell you that. Are those your 10 best songs you ever wrote? Or are those just the next 10 things you come up with? Because you need $50,000 to put a down payment on a house. So when people pay you $500 to make your first record, there was no, like, you put in the work to like make those songs, like craft those songs. And when someone says you need 10 songs to like make a living this year, you might have 2 good ones.
Right.
8 we can pay, you know? Yeah, go pay the bills with that one. It's 3 minutes long. That's a song, you know? And that, so I thought having the synthesizer would make it so I can't save it, I can't sell it, can't record it. So if I enjoy music, that's all this is purely making music, not selling it. I don't share it. I don't show it to anybody. And sometimes I still do that, but I have the job.
You know, there's no law that says you have to take it on the road. You know, like there's, you know, it's
no, right. But when you do it, I always think of it because like I have ended up being friends with like pro skateboarders and snowboarders and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think about when you have a pro model snowboard or skateboard, that's really similar to having your record put out, right?
Yeah.
And when you're a 51-year-old former professional skateboarder who did it to get paid, like you did it for a living, some of these people have a hard time doing it fun because it's always connected to monetization. Yeah, and that happened to me because I was doing it for a living for so long, and I didn't like that about myself. So, yeah.
So you mentioned.
I'm sorry.
No. There's nothing wrong with that. But you did mention earlier on, 2017. You decided to do like what was it, like 9-10 shows, like in the dead of winter or some.
Yeah. So my daughter was 4-H and she wanted goats, a certain type of goat. We did a tour, and so my half of the money would pay for the goat barn and the goats and the fencing, and that's what I did. I did that. It's fun. You know, Dan and I played in Fargo. I don't know if it was 6 years ago or what, just a one-off show.
Oh, for that benefit,
and it was
for that bar, that club, right?
Yeah. It was perfect. We had hotel rooms, but not together. And then we had the bar to practice in every day.
Nice.
So, like, we were living all over each other. We could practice every day. And him and I, like, practicing is really fun. And we are, it's just fun band to be in still. And like other people have said on your podcast, if that was all there was to being in a band on tour, was that 45 minutes, dude, I would still be doing it every day. But it's not. There's a lot of other shit that you don't get paid to do.
Shit. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of work.
There is.
So we did that one show. Yeah, we did that one show, and it was like really well received. Like I didn't know. And it was with Hammerhead. It's really awesome band called 7 O'Clock Sucker, the bar band that would, I mean, I thought they stole the show. Like they were so fucking good. And, you know, it's similar age people, like 50-year-old people that had bands in their 20s or whatever. And their singer Kyle was so awesome. And then Hammerhead played, and I, of course, like cry like crazy because I haven't heard that. That sound is my, like, oh, fuck, man, I love that sound. And then we played, and it was fine, like, it was great, and then it was over. And then I asked to play in Brooklyn or something. And it was for enough money. They wanted us to play 2 shows, like a Friday, Saturday or something at the same bar.
Yeah.
And the people flying or whatever. And it was a bunch of money. And I mean, of course, I don't fly. Like, if I can't talk into a telephone, I don't get on an airplane. I mean, there's stuff I will do if I have to, but. And then Dan and I, ever since we started, we had made a joke that we were going to tour the Upper Midwest in February, like just make it the worst possible tour.
Yes.
And so we were like, now's our chance. Let's do it. And for 2 weeks straight, we had days where it was like 25 below the high. We're like the door handle band shattered, like the aluminum door handle shattered. And we're loading into places, you know, like regular bar load-ins up fire escapes, and it's like 20 below.
All the glamour stuff,
and
right?
Nobody. Yeah, but it was like, that has been a joke in our band for 30 years to like do a February. Like we were going to do all the shows in North Dakota. It's like every town you could get.
Why not?
We were going to do like 2 weeks. Yeah. Like anywhere that would take us in February.
Right.
And so we did it, and it was brutal. Like people couldn't get out. Like it was like emergent. Like it was so cold that there were like cities were shutting down streets so people wouldn't go out to the bars, you know. And then we're at this bar with and we have guarantees. So there's like, oh, they committed to pay us $1,000.
Yeah.
And then it's 27 below, and like 4 people show up.
Oh man!
And you're like, this is like old tour, except we would have got $20. And now we're like, we're feel like shit because we're stealing money, you know. But yeah, I mean, I needed the money.
They knew what the season was. They knew what, you know. They probably didn't move there from Florida, right?
Whatever. Yeah, but so we did that tour, and I used the money to pay for goats, and not
amazing
llamas, like you said. Yeah, but
not alpacas.
Not alpacas. And it was fun, but it also wore me out. You know, like we ended up on the East Coast, and I had to drive home by myself, which was fine. Like I love being by myself, and I love driving. But by the time I got home, it was just like, and this wasn't. It was like 2 out of the 10 shows that were really, really, really fun, and then there was like 8 or 5 that were just like, I don't ever need to do that again, you know. And the last one was one of those where it was like, yeah, I don't need to do that again. And so we got to stay in Fargo this summer, and Dan and I are talking about it, but I mean, gas just to get from Washington, and the stupid amps, the vehicle I need to haul the amps in, you know, it's like,
Yeah. It
nah,
adds up.
yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's gotta either be like, it's gotta be fun for me. And right now, like, there's other stuff that is as fun with way less hassle. And I told Dan, like, after the last tour, I was like, we should just get our bikes and go on tour and not play music.
Just hang out.
Yeah, because hanging out with Dan is awesome. It's the music that, like, I think you should have Dan on here, and if he would feel free to speak freely about being in a band with me, like, you miss a snare hit, it's over. I will lose my shit, and for days, stay mad for days, but it's only sometimes. Like, sometimes you can miss every snare hit, and I don't give a shit. I think it's funny too, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really hard to be in band with, and I think some time and distance away from being in bands has helped me to realize that's the case, and it's not always fun. If I'm not having fun, it's not fun for anybody else that's on the trip. So
Right.
if I
Makes
can't
sense.
see it being really fun for me, it's not going to be fun for Dan either. So trying to be fair, and I'm like, I probably can't play this summer, but maybe think about it next summer if they ask us again, because I just can't see myself having fun in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, you know. Keep it adventure based. Why not?
Yeah.
So, Mike, this has been badass, man. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing it. Well worth
looking
the
at the
wait.
clock. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
Nothing to apologize for. I'll split it up into 2 episodes or something. Ironically, I'm going to be on tour next week, so it's easy.
Yeah.
$5 a gallon.
You hear the same story.
Tank. Yeah, do the math. How that was for me yesterday. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. No thanks. Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, I used to think striving was really gross looking. Like, people my age, their bands are broken up, or like their real band was on, and they just keep on being in bands and like striving, and they have kids at home, and they're like leaving to go on tour, but it's just a vanity project. Like, there's no way they're earning a living.
Yeah.
That used to really bother me. But now, there's a friend of mine, Eric, who has this band called In Droves in this little tiny town we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so jealous. I told him, like, I'm so jealous you can get it together to have a band and like you can practice.
Right.
And play shows. Like, it's not striving, it's fun. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, in the 20 years of not playing music, I've got a better, like, I'd be way better to be in a band with now than I was then, because I appreciate it all more. And I can see, so like what you're doing, I know I don't have the energy to do that, but I think it's something that you do it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
I know what you're in for,
yeah.
but you know what you're in for too.
I know what I'm in for too.
Right.
Old enough to know better,
Yeah.
and crazy enough to still do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm jealous, not jealous, but I'm like, yeah, I wish my brain would do that. Let me do that too. you know, like I just think too much about everything. That's something I used to think a different way than I do now. But yeah, yeah, I'd love to have, I don't know if you're stupid or you got, what is it? You got to either be stupid or brave.
Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I'm not either. But I'm not brave, but I'm not stupid. So I
Mike,
don't go on tour anymore. Yeah.
You've heard the show.
Thanks, Conan.
This is like last thing,
Yeah.
same question. Only thing I ever ask people: choose, interpret it however you like. Why do you do what you do?
But what I do now,
you can choose to interpret it however you like, my friend.
I do what I do, so I can do what I want to do. Yeah, I got it. That's it. Yeah, I do what I have to do, so I can do what I want to do.
Mike, thanks so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, anytime. Really, I can fill it up, man. You need me back. I can fill it up. Yeah, I save it up.
This will be the Hobbit to the Lord of the Rings for next time, right?
Oh no! Wait for Silmarillion or whatever. Yeah, I got it all. I got 6 books.
All right, brother. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Conan.
There he goes. Let's hear a tune. And wow, holy crap, that was Mike Kunka, man. What a cool guy. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.